Did you know that one of the most powerful, feature-rich, and simple video recording apps is one that you've already been using for a lot of your online classes? Keep watching to find out more. Hello, my friends. Welcome to EdTech with Adam. You know, a lot of my colleagues come up to me and say, "Hey Adam, I want to be able to record a video for my class with whiteboards and with screencasting so I can pre-record lessons for my students, but I don't want to have to learn how to use an entirely new program to do this." And I say, "Well, do you use Zoom?" And they say, "Yeah, I do. Why?" And I say, "Well, you know, you could record your entire lessons on Zoom with all these features." And quite often teachers, they've never really thought about that because they usually use Zoom for their live classes, but they don't usually use it for recording their lesson contents. And it's actually a really great place to do that. And as you can see from our handy dandy table here, that Zoom actually has a lot of the features that quite a few of the other platforms do not. In fact, up until now, the ones that we've covered, Zoom is the only platform that includes all of these things like the whiteboarding features and green screen, which is another big thing, and being able to have screencasting. So it has a lot of these really great features in it, and we're going to talk about that today. So right away here you can see I'm not on my usual camera and my usual microphone. I thought just to show you what it sounds and looks like on a school-issued MacBook Air, you would be able to see what this looks like. So this is what it looks like on a MacBook Air 720p camera and the MacBook Air microphone. As you can hear, it's not that bad in terms of quality, and the camera itself is also not that bad either. I'd personally be happy with this if I'm just pre-recording my contents for my class. When you want to start recording your Zoom video, it's very simple. Just go down to the interface here, click on record, and as you can see, when I'm recording here, you get a little bit of a message at the top left here saying that you're recording, also with tools allowing you to stop the recording. You can also stop the recording on the bottom little button here where we started the recording. One thing you'll notice here if you compare my screen capture and my Zoom recording is that the Zoom recording does not include all of these little buttons and all of these little menus and things like that. So even if you share your screen here, and when you share, of course, you get all these things up in the top and all of that. That won't actually show in your Zoom recording video. So that's a nice little feature there to keep the video nice and clean. So I'm going to press stop here to finish the recording, and then after you end the meeting, you'll be able to save the recording in a location of your choosing on your computer. So I'm going to stop the recording and press end the meeting. And it will take a moment just to convert it, but once it finishes converting, after that, it will give you the option to save it where you'd like to save it. So let's talk about some of these interesting features. So first of all, you notice behind me, I have a green screen. And even if you do not have a green screen, you can still use creative backdrops for your classroom. And so you can just go in down here, press the little up arrow, and then choose virtual background. Now you can see there are a few different backgrounds here. We have the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge and grass and planets and another interesting one that I used I think once or twice for Dungeons and Dragons. Now something to keep in mind is when you use these virtual backgrounds, it's actually very intense on the computer's CPU. And on this particular computer, it's just a MacBook Air, and it does get a little overwhelmed if I use these backgrounds. So for today, I'm just going to show you how you can do this. So you just select it, and you're pretty much good to go. But I'm going to turn this off so that the computer does not have too much of an issue. Just go back to none here and close it. All right, so that's a very cool feature. Again, you could put educational slides in the backdrop here. You could put some kind of thing in your lecture that you interact and point at, which would be very cool as well. But really, with this green screening feature, the possibilities are endless here. Now, let's talk about screencasting and all the cool stuff we can do with that. So for screencasting, all we have to do is go down here to share a screen, click on that, and then click on what we'd like to share. And now, like I mentioned before, we can have a whiteboard, so I can actively just be teaching my lesson, click on the whiteboard, click share, and it will open up a whiteboard for us here. So I open this up, and all I have to do is just go on. I can draw. I can choose different colors here. I can add text. I can add a whole bunch of different really interesting little shapes. I can use little stamps, which is very cool. All these kinds of things, very easy to do. And the really cool thing about this as well is this can also be collaborative. So if you're doing this video lecture and maybe you're doing it together with some students as well, you could collaboratively be making this and recording this video, which is super cool, very interactive. And I know students love it when you bring them into the lesson too and let them really be one of the creative factors. Now we also have a spotlight here, which is kind of like a laser pointer, which lets you point around at things. We have the eraser, which lets you erase these things, and all the typical things, undo, clear. You can even save the image. If you click on save, it'll let you save it to your computer for later use. Maybe you can post it into Google Classroom or something like that. So that's a really cool little feature, the whiteboard here. Now another one, if we go up to the top, we can click on New Share here, and it'll let us open something else. Let's go into that, the screencasting. I'm going to screencast something I'd use for a lesson here. So here I am, once again, talking about the comparative grammar for my ESL students. And with this, just like all the other screencasting things, it lets me go on, talk about it, and all the while I have my picture here. I can also make this bigger and smaller by dragging on it. I think for my own confidence levels, I'll probably keep it a little bit smaller there. I don't want my face to be right in the students' face when they're watching this lesson. And one of the really cool things that I really like about Zoom here is the fact that the tools I just showed you a moment ago with the interactive whiteboard can also be used while you're doing screencasting, which is really cool and something, again, that I have not seen very much in other platforms. So check this out. I can go into the top here. I click on Annotate. And then with this tool here, the exact same tools, I can draw, I can circle stuff, I can put stamps on things to indicate maybe things I want my students to focus on or pay attention to. And a really cool thing here is, again, just like the whiteboard, you can save this later. So you could actually use this tool also to help you create little animated videos of your interactions with the course resources and really for you to help your students find out what's important here. And you also have with the spotlight, I didn't mention earlier, there's not only the laser pointer, which also lets you select things. So this is really cool if you're doing a little demonstration, maybe to your students, and saying to your students, hey, this is how you can use Zoom to do a group project or presentation for your class. You can be scrolling through stuff, highlighting stuff, and this little pointer makes it a lot easier for students to see. But also, we have this arrow, and you can drop this anywhere, and this will give this little arrow with your name on it, again, to point out something you might want your students to pay attention to. So this is very cool. We also have the option here to click select, and you can move around all these things on the page as well, which is really cool, except for the arrow there. That's a different thing. And we also can go back to the mouse, so you can actually go in and you can actively type or edit things while you are teaching your lecture, right? So this is really, really cool. For me personally, this just has so many great applications, and it's something that I also use in my own classes, especially for my asynchronous videos, just because it has so many fun little tools and toys that I can play with and use to make my class a lot more interactive and a lot more interesting. Now, some of the other apps like Flipgrid and YouTube offer automatic and manual captioning. And as you can see here in the screenshots, yes, you can do manual and automatic captioning. The only thing is with the manual captioning, it means as you're speaking, you would have to be typing. Or you would get someone else, perhaps in the Zoom call, and you would get them to type up what you're saying. And this would make it a lot more accessible for your students, perhaps for students who are hearing impaired or something like that. There are also some third-party apps that will allow you to automatically caption your speech, but that would basically involve you going out and finding these third-party apps. I'm not going to go into that here, but needless to say, it is something that is possible if it's something that you require for your class. So let's go into the other stuff on our table here. So first of all, we have compliancy. So in terms of compliancy, as you've probably heard in the news, Zoom has had some issues with security and things like that. They have said that it has been fixed, and as of now, Zoom is FERPA compliant. However, that's something that you would have to check with your tech staff. It still isn't FIPPA compliant because of the fact that most of the data is still stored in the US and possibly even internationally. So that's something that might be a big barrier for Canadian educators. However, I do know that tentatively, Zoom has been accepted for use in Canada as well. But in terms of recording and storing the data, because when you're recording this, of course, you can record it and store it to your desktop, but at the same time, you can also store it to a cloud. And if you choose the cloud option, that might get you in trouble. So something that you might want to keep in mind and stay away from. Now, how about availability and interoperability with learning management systems? Well, we know that Zoom is a standalone platform. It works on its own. Right now, it does not officially work together with any learning management systems. However, there are some third-party apps that you can use to integrate it with a learning management system. So again, this is something that you or your IT staff would have to look into, but it's not something that is natively built into Zoom. Now, I'm mentioning a lot of third-party apps here, and one thing I just also want to mention is the danger with third-party apps. Well, first of all, it gives you an additional security concern. But the other thing is when you use third-party apps, when the main platform that you're using like Zoom upgrades, there's no guarantee that the third-party app is going to upgrade at the same rate or at the same time. So what that means is you might have a sudden upgrade in Zoom in the middle of your semester, and the third-party app doesn't upgrade at the same time. Maybe it doesn't upgrade for a few months. It means that whatever you were trying to do or whatever you were doing all of a sudden is unusable. And that could pose a big issue if you're trying to have some consistency in your classes. So while third-party apps are great, you can use them for some cool stuff, it's also good to keep in mind, again, security concerns and also whether or not they'll actually be available upon updates. And especially given the popularity of Zoom, as you know, there are updates all the time. So this is something just to keep in mind. Finally, in terms of cost, Zoom has been free for quite a while here. Its basic package is free. There is a paid package, which is a bit more robust and something that you actually do need if you have more than a small handful of students. So most likely your school district or yourself would have to pay for a premium package in order to teach a class with multiple students. However, for recording, the free version is perfectly fine. This is the free version that I'm using right now to record this, so you'll have no issues. However, one thing that I did read about is that if you want to capture your video on a very high quality, some kind of HD quality higher than 720p, you will have to have one of the upper tiered premium plans because they've specifically said that high quality video has to be enabled by Zoom support staff. It's not something that you can just enable. So if you want really high quality video for your lessons, for your lectures, you're going to have that premium level, and then you have to reach out to the Zoom support staff and personally request that they enable that really high level of video capture to be usable in your recording sessions. That's it for my video today. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope this helped you decide whether or not Zoom is the right platform for your video recording for your lectures. If you think this might be helpful for some of your colleagues, please forward this on to them, share it with them. Please leave me a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and leave me some comments. Let me know what you'd like to see next, or let me know what you thought about it. As always, I'm Adam, your personal EdTech specialist, and stay healthy.